This is Lord Mad Dog. Today we're talking more about writing, and more specifically, points of views or styles of writing. And we're going to talk about specifically 4 points of views, okay, or styles. It really depends on how I like to say styles. Other people like to say points of views because it's a more technical term, but it's the styles of writing. All right, so those 4 points of views are first person, third person, narrator, and omniscient. First person is one is we're going to talk about first. Of course, first person is okay. So anyway, first person is from the character you are telling the story from. He cannot know anything that he shouldn't know. It's just as if you are stuck in your own body, therefore you are stuck in that character's body. Okay, and he can only see, hear, feel, think of any things that he is able to see, hear, feel. He can't know what other people are thinking. He can kind of perceive. You can show it through maybe facial expressions and whatnot. But he's very limited to his point of view. And this style is quite famous today, especially in romance. People, for some reason, really love the first point of view for romance books. Okay, so if you're thinking about writing a romance book, you might want to do a little bit of research on first person view. Okay, now with this first person view, you're going to have a lot of problems with I, me, and mine, or those type of personal pronouns. Anything with personal pronouns, you're going to end up repeating them a lot of times, and you're going to have to work around that. And you're also going to have to work on trying to describe facial expressions a little bit more, because people won't know otherwise what the other people are feeling. You've got to give that conveying of emotion. You're completely in this person's head, which is the good part of this. You are completely in this person's head. You can know exactly what they feel, think, and see. Okay? And you don't have to say, she thought, he thought. No, it's specifically, it can just be a continuous thought line. Okay, second one is third person view. Now this one is still kind of like a first person, because you can be inside that person's mind, but you're a little bit less limited to what you're seeing, feeling, and thinking. But also you're a little bit more limited in the way that you can't really just go off on a tangent of how they feel, think. You've got to be more specific when they think something, maybe by quotation marks. Well, actually, no, they're not quotation marks. The big thing is italicsing. Okay, and so that way your character knows what you're thinking. This one is my favorite style of writing. It's more for action genre, not used as much for romance, as I said, because that's more first person, and it can, just like when you are playing a game, you can, on third person, you can kind of peek around the corner with the third person view. So it's kind of the same concept when you're writing a third person view character narration. Okay, then we have, and well, with this, before I go on to narrating, I would like to say with this one you're going to have a lot of she, hises, or that type of stuff. And because it's from that, like, so let's say Xrina, she jumped over the moon, and she didn't actually jump over the moon, but you know what I mean. Okay, so that's the type of pronouns you're going to want to use for that. Okay, and for narrator, this one's a bit different, because now a narrator is from an outside point of view looking in, like as if I had a camera on the wall and I watched everyone around. Okay, this was a little bit more famous a little bit of time ago, like back when I was around 16 or something. This was the kind of the more standard, at least the books I was reading, kind of a more standard. But with this, you don't get in your characters' heads. You don't know what they're thinking. You can only be conveyed to the reader through what the camera on the wall or the fly on the wall was kind of seeing. This is good. This is great style for managing multiple characters, massive action battle scenes, so you can see things. And it may be easier at times in your third person view to not pick a specific character point of view, but to go from a narrator point of view. As I said, though, that's not, how would you say it? People don't quite like that. It's not quite culture. I do it. You got to make a decision whether or not you're going to do it. Like I said, some people don't like it, though. So as a third person view, you can't tell what, no, I mean narrating, you can't tell what your characters are thinking. So it can also limit you to feeling close to your character. You won't feel near as close to your characters unless you're very good in explaining emotions on faces or actions or their body language. So if you think you can describe body languages really well all the time, and try to convey that. It's like just like watching a movie. It's kind of like a screenplay. So, because most of the times in movies, you're not inside that character's head. So that's a narrator. All right. Then there's omniscient. Now this style was really famous back around when I was still in my, well, before I was my teens, I guess. Omniscient is not like nowadays. It's actually very much frowned upon. So you might not want to do about omniscient, but omniscient is just like a narrator, but omniscient allows you to jump into a character's mind and know exactly what he's seeing or hearing or thinking, and allows you to basically be omniscient. And as I said, most people do not like that, so I don't know. I wrote when I first started. I wrote an omniscient, and I had to go back and I had to change a lot of my work, because with omniscient it breaks immersion a lot when reading a book. In today's society, immersion is a big deal, so I wouldn't suggest doing it. I won't be surprised if you started to write a book. You are doing it, so you want to go back and look at it. And if you do decide to do omniscient, you've got to be very careful about head popping, which I talk about later. All right, so but first I'm going to go ahead and give you some examples. So we're going to switch on over to that right now. Here we have an example of first person. It's from my book Axiom, and we are currently in the head of Mathis Nylander. All right, so we will start from this point. It's a little bit into the story already. We arrived at one of the road-like streams running through the orchard. I walked out onto the water. Dozens of different types of fruit flowed downstream underneath my feet, and I watched them as I waited for my class to gather at the stream's edge. As you can see, this orchard provides most of the someone was coming. I glanced skyward just in time to see the giant magical dome that covered the entire orchard ripple. Whoever it was at least decently magically talented. A rift less than 10 feet away from me opened up. All right, so now that's basic example of first person. You see that we have the we. He's obviously talking from his point of view, I, mine, and he is basically narrating the story from his thought pattern. Okay? And that's what the first person is. It's all being thought of from the specific person's point of view. And that's why some people like it and other people, So I personally, but it's a great tool. And as I said, romance. A lot of people like this for romance. Now, I make mistakes later on, a little bit later on this book. Well, not exactly a mistake. It's kind of like a bait and switch. And I've said that you shouldn't do it. You should not switch between point of view styles in a book. But I did that, okay, for this. And maybe I've got a couple comments about it, but anyway. So I will switch. I'll go down to where I switch over to third person point of view. Right here. This is still from Nylander's point of view. I agreed to the offered bond, and the world faded away as our magic reached for each other. My small body burned with exhilaration as I felt both hers and my magic race up our arms and entangle like long-lost lovers. Then her magic entered through my fingertips and flowed down my palm into my... Ex-Rena ripped the memory circuit off and dropped it to the floor. Wait, Mom, you're not telling me this is how Grandpa married Grandma, are you? A smile spread across Ex-Rena's mother's face. Yes, dear, that's exactly what this is, she said as she picked up the circuit. You can't be serious. He bonded with her just like that? Yes, dear, this is exactly how it happened, and I married your father in much the same way. She had never heard of such a thing. Before She never heard of such a thing before. Bonding was an ancient and powerful magic that was typically done only after an elaborate wedding ceremony. Okay, so I'm not going to read anymore, but you basically get the concept. You see the massive difference here from what it was a few minutes ago. We were reading from a person who was telling the story. Now we have a third person point of view where it's kind of more of a narration of the character, but it's also still, I still have access to the way she feels and the way she thought and the way she acts. Okay, so like she had never heard of such a thing before. See, that's obviously from her point of view. Now, the problem with this is that you don't get quite as connected to your character as you do with a first person point of view, but it also doesn't limit you near as much and allows you to have some creative licensing. Well, all of it allows you to be creative, but I like the style more. That's just my opinion. But I hope you can see the difference between the two. Now we're going to go ahead and switch over to more of a narration style. I don't have any omniscient because, like I said, it's frowned on, and I had to go back and change a lot of my work because I had started out as omniscient. All right, so we'll switch over to that. Alright, this is my Taken to Space series. In this series, I have a family of 5, and they're all really important characters. So, it's kind of hard to pick one, and especially in the very beginning, and narrate it from a third-person view for them. So instead, I go for a narration view in the very beginning. Now, I'll switch over later on a couple times and actually have it from one of the characters' point of view. And this one's a little bit not quite as bad as switching from a first person to a third person, which is really not good for a book. I did that in my last book. You really shouldn't. Okay, I think, from what I read, it's kind of okay to go from a narration to a third-person view at times. It really depends on the situation in the book, and but really, you probably shouldn't do that either. You know, it's kind of, you know, it's just how it is. Anyway, so we go, "Wahoo!" Michael yelled as he leaned back in his chair. Daniel pushed away his virtual controls. "Woot! Good job, everyone," Stephen said as he clicked through some statistic charts. "That's the 6th Galactic Empire tournament we won now, isn't it?" Catherine asked. Stephanie put her hands over her eyes and let them rest. "Yes, though the competition in this one was a lot harder than the last 5. So right off the bat, we noticed that there is no specific person's point of view. It's not he, she, or they're not narrating it themselves. It's an actual narrator looking from like a fly on the wall, like a camera up there looking down at this whole thing going on. So that's what narration is if you were a camera looking down and seeing all the things. Now, if you're going to do narration without having any thoughts, because you can't, as a narrator, you can't know what the people are thinking. You're going to have to be very good at expressions, body language, and the way people act. So it's kind of like a screenplay or watching a movie. You have to be very specific with the details if you're going to do narration. And narration makes your characters very distant. So it's not suggested for most people to do this. Maybe in certain circumstances, like I've done it here, but most of the time you want people to relate to your characters, so you want them to be able to get inside the head. But with narration, you can't tell what's inside the head. Now, what most beginner writers would do, what I did, and that would be omniscient narration or omniscience, which we've already talked about, which is very much looked down upon in today's society. Back when I was a kid, it was okay to do. Now, not so much. It breaks immersion, and there's quite a few different problems with it, and it's very much looked down on the literal society and those who read. So, example of that would be Daniel swiveled his head to look at Stephen, and he couldn't believe what Stephen was saying, or I didn't know what the context of that is, but basically, I'm telling you exactly how Daniel feels, and I see how Daniel feels, and then I'll pop over to Stephen and see how he feels. And Stephen smiled. He was bursting with joy on the inside. He had strived so hard and so long at trying to get to this point, and he had finally succeeded. See, I'm now telling you how Steven feels. No, I can't do that. If I'm well, if I'm that's what if I was the narrator, I can't do that. But as a omniscient, you can. However, like I said, an omniscient's a no-go nowadays. So you can't do that. Now, another thing in third person, you got to watch. So we're going to go back and talk a little bit about third person or first person head popping. If you're going to change views, point of views from, let's say, from me to my wife. So instead of narrating from Daniel's point of view, you're going to be narrating from Catherine's point of view. You should have some type of I don't have it here. Any let's see here. Taking space to go to. Let's take over the galaxy. Sorry, an error occurred. Oh, right. No, it's wonderful. Okay, well, you should have some type of asterisk if you're going to dictate the change, or some type of note, or maybe even chapter change if you're going to switch from point of view. For a character's point of view, it looks like I lost internet for some stupid reason. Yeah. Okay. Well, it happens. Anyway, so if you're going to switch character point of views, you should have some type of break and make it very clear. Otherwise, you get a thing what they call head popping. So if I say Daniel thought this way, and then I have Catherine saying how she felt, that is either being omniscient or head popping, and you don't want to do that because it breaks immersion. So if you're going to switch a point of view, it's okay to have multiple characters' point of view. Like Codex of Valeria was one of my favorite book series, and it had 3 different characters. One of them I didn't care for at all, but it would switch between them at times throughout the book. And that's okay to do it, but you want to make sure that people know you're doing it, and you're not just randomly saying he felt, she felt, and then having the description as if you're reading their minds and head popping from one head to another, because that will really break immersion and make people kind of with you. All right, so that to recap, we have got first person point of view. You always want it. It's basically I, me, mine type of pronouns. All right. Then we got third person point of view. It's told more of from a narration, but also still in that character's mindset. You've got usually it's she, he, or those type of nouns. And then you've got narration. So you're looking down from above or looking from some point of view, and you are watching it. You are not actually one of the characters as you're writing. And then there's omniscient, which is you're able to kind of tell what everyone's saying and thinking, and even though, like I said, don't do that. All right, so I hope this helped you. It would have helped me a lot if I would have understood it when I first started out. It would have saved me a lot of time. I hope this does save you time, and I hope I made it very clear and you like it. Lord Mad Dog, signing off.